Scene 19, end of freshman year. Freshman year didn't end with a bang. It settled. Final exams came and went, lockers emptied, teachers softened their voices like their work was already done. The building felt lighter, like it was exhaling us out into whatever came next. Mitch walked through Mount Pleasant different now. Football coaches talked to him like he was royalty. Basketball coaches treat him like an investment. And track coaches stopped correcting him and started timing him instead. 3 sports, 3 seasons, all with the same result. People didn't ask if he played anymore. They asked what he played. He still moved quiet, didn't brag. He still moved quiet, didn't brag. But the way people stepped aside for him told the story. Tanya stayed close, kept things steady, with no performances. They didn't need to prove anything. What's understood doesn't need to be said. Mitch wasn't choosing sports over everything else. Sports were choosing him. CeeLo's year ended in a different way. Wilmington High didn't change him. It confirmed him. By the time finals hit, nobody questioned how he moved or who he was tied to. Teachers watched him closer. Older dudes nodded instead of tested. The streets welcomed him. Erica stayed, not because she was confused, but because she had made a decision. They weren't extra about it, just kept things consistent. She showed up where he was, and he made room without making promises he couldn't keep. Being with CeeLo didn't make Erica softer, it made her sharper. CeeLo also stopped pretending this was a temporary situation. School was something he was completing. The streets were something he was committing to. Sonny didn't supervise anymore. He expected results, and CeeLo delivered without any signs of hesitation. I felt the end of the year more quietly. William Penn never became comfortable, but it became familiar. My name carried weight, not because what I had done, but because who stood behind it. That didn't make things relax. It made them tighten up. Virginia stayed visible, always loud enough to be noticed, always where people could see. Standing close in the ways that made people ask questions. Being around her felt like stepping into a version of myself that came with assumptions already attached. Rhonda was different. There was no performing with her. She waited patiently. She asked me once what I wanted and didn't repeat the question. Being around her felt like narrowing the room, like choosing something smaller but more real. I started to understand the cost of the decision that needed to be made. Choosing Virginia meant being seen and carrying everything that came with visibility. Expectations I couldn't control. Assumptions made before I spoke. Choosing Rhonda meant fewer eyes, fewer shortcuts, and less protection disguised as attention. I hadn't chosen yet, but I felt neutrality was costing me something as well. Denise and I spent more time together. Long talks that didn't start with advice. She told me about mistakes without framing them as warnings, about moments she thought were small until they weren't. You don't disappear by accident, she told me once. You drift by choosing comfort too long. She talked about college like it was practical, not a hope or a dream, like something you prepare for quietly. She didn't tell me what to do. She explains what happens when you wait too long to decide. Summer pressed in closer every day. Heat lingered longer. Nights stretching past where they used to end. The city started to buzz again, like it was waking up to something familiar. Everybody was making plans, just not saying them out loud. Mitch was already moving towards something bigger. CeeLo was already standing in something deeper, and me, I was somewhere in between, knowing I couldn't stay there much longer, because sooner or later, standing in the middle stops being an option and turns into a decision. Chapter 5, Sophomore Year. Scene 20, summer before sophomore year. Summer didn't ease in after freshman year ended. It rushed. One week we were stressing about finals. The next we were outside with nothing to do and nowhere we had to go. Heat sat on your skin even when you weren't moving. Everybody shifted once school let out. Same streets, but different intentions. Virginia was already done with high school. That made things different, even if nobody said it out loud. She just suddenly seemed to be around more. At the corner store when I ran in for a drink, sitting on the steps when we cut through her block, laughing like she had nowhere she needed to be anymore, like time had opened up for her. She carried herself different, like she crossed past something and didn't feel the need to explain it. When she talked about school, it was past tense. When she talked about what was next, it was vague but real. Work, maybe college, maybe just leaving. When she talked to me, she looked straight at me. Not like I was a kid, not like I was somebody she had to guide, like we were on the same level. That mattered more than I wanted to admit. The summer rhythm locked in fast. Mornings, whatever. Afternoons roaming. Nights outside. Mitch was busy with camps and open gyms, chasing whatever edge he could find. CeeLo was in and out, always somewhere to be, somewhere he just came from. I just started peeling off more. Just found myself heading toward Virginia's block like it made sense. We'd sit on her porch some evenings, the sky turning orange before it faded out. She talked about being glad high school was over, not about missing it the way people said you would. She felt like she was standing at the edge of something without knowing how deep it was. I mostly listened. Every now and then she'd ask me something, not in a testing way, more like she was curious where I was headed. One night she asked, "So what you really on this summer?" I shrugged. Same shit, not making no noise, just trying to stay out the way. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's cool. Just don't stay there too long." I didn't argue. Hell, I didn't know how. Things moved slow between us until they didn't. One of those nights where the air felt heavy, we started saying things both of us were nervous to say out loud. We were inside of her house. Everyone else was gone. TV on. Felt more like it was watching us. She leaned into me like it had already been decided. I thought about Mitch, about CeeLo, and how everybody else was making moves. I didn't want to be the one still standing still, acting like patience was the same as purpose. So I didn't stop it. It wasn't clean or confident. First times never are. Too much thinking, not enough rhythm. I wasn't thinking about being grown. I was thinking about not going back outside the same way I came in. After we laid there quiet, but it wasn't awkward, just still. She rested her head on my chest like it belonged there. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the cars pass outside. "You good?" she asked. "Yeah," I responded. It was mostly true. As she was giving me a ride home later, everything looked the same, but felt different. Same streets, same summer air, but I wasn't the same. I didn't regret it, just felt more aware. The summer I chose Virginia, not because she was safe or perfect, but because she was already moving. I didn't want to feel like I was falling behind. I didn't know yet that moving forward and moving correctly weren't always the same thing. Wilmington wasn't the only place I was learning new things that summer. When I wasn't in Wilmington, I was in Newcastle kicking it with Frankie. Over freshman year, we had started chilling together a lot more when we found out we lived close to each other. Frankie lived in Boothhurst, a development that sat off Newcastle Avenue. He showed me that you could cut from Jefferson Farms to Boothhurst by taking a shortcut through the woods. Frankie also took me to all the neighborhoods along Newcastle Avenue: Dunleaf, Garfield Park, Simon's Gardens, Holloway Terrace, Overview Gardens, and Oakmont, just to name a few. He would introduce me to all the people from school that I didn't know. Frankie moved throughout all those neighborhoods like he was a regular. My grandmother lived in Garfield Park my whole life, he told me. Every summer, my cousins and I would be all up and down the Ave. That's what people from Newcastle called Newcastle Avenue. Frankie's family reminded me of mine in a lots of ways. The difference was their fascination with weapons: guns, blades, swords, anything that looked dangerous. Frankie once told me he bought sticks of dynamite from a dude whose uncle was tied to the Philly mob. Not a big-time mobster, just the kind of guy who always knew someone who had access to things regular people weren't supposed to have. Frankie didn't say it like he was bragging. He said it like he found a rare baseball card. I didn't believe him until one day, while we was at his house, we went into his shed. He dug in the back corner behind the lawnmower and pulled them out wrapped in an old towel. I ain't know if I should be impressed or worried. Frankie didn't seem like he had a plan to use them. He just liked knowing he had them on stash. Along with the dynamite, he pulled out 3 pistols, a 12-gauge shotgun, and a Tech 9. Not only was Frankie my Newcastle tour guide, he was also the gun plug. And just like that, my world got a little bigger and a little more dangerous.